the recording and show my screen. So today's session is intended to be about 35 minutes long, fairly quick, high-level session. This is a two-way presentation with two-way communications. So for those of you who are here on your telephones, which I know is more and more less frequent, but if you are here with your phones, please don't put us on mute so we don't hear your or on holds. We don't hear your hold music. That would be not that great. If you're muted now and you have questions at the end, that would be fine. We do anticipate having some time at the end of the session today for discussion and hopefully questions and answers. We are delighted today to have with us a guest speaker. Nikki Glazer Stoicoiu is here as the Director of Data and Analytics from the new Growth Group. Sylvia Rios, who is the program developer at Lorain Community College, Lorain County Community College for the Department of Labor Scaling Apprenticeship Grant, was unable to be here today, so we will miss her, but we are very excited that Nikki is here. So that's exciting. Contact information for speakers and information will be available at the end of the session. From the Go to Training Control panel, for those of you who are new to this particular tool, in the materials section, there is a handout of today's slides. Those are available for you as a PDF download. It will also be emailed to you immediately, I believe immediately, after today's session. So you will have, an easy way to get the materials that are presented in the slide deck today. So I'm really excited that you're all here today in anticipation of this long weekend upcoming. I really appreciate you being here because of all of everybody's really busy schedules. As Nikki and I were just talking, we're very, very busy, which is a great problem to have. And I know all of you are super busy and all of the work that we're doing in a new and different way, although I suppose we're all sort of getting used to that a little bit. But I do want to extend my thanks to you, and I do want to extend a very special thank you to our guest presenter today, Nikki. Thank you very much. So let's go ahead and dive right in. What am I going to learn today? So, for those of you who know me or have attended, some of my other webinars for product announcements or demos or user group meetings or, whatever, you know that I really love hearing what's going on out in the field, attending workforce GPS sessions, as sometimes exciting as those are, and other types of webinars that we in this industry have access to. It's really exciting and a lot of fun. And I'm really excited about today's webinar because we are going to hear from one of our Scaling Apprenticeship grantees about how they are dealing with all of a sudden having no community college students showing up at their partners, their community college partners, or employer partners due to COVID-19. So we're going to hear from them how they are coming up with some different strategies about how to handle the initial participant data entry and what that process, is looking like and emerging for their project. And on top of that, since of course everybody is working from home or working remotely, certainly not in our standard brick and mortar, sorts of offices that we all have come from. I'm working in my little home office cabin, it looks like here in my background. We're going to hear from them how they are mandating new business processes and practices and procedures for addressing some of their basic security practices in working with this grant and just working remotely sort of in general. Then we're going to shift gears a little bit, and then I will be showing you the AGS Prime application very, very briefly for the H-1B Scaling Apprenticeship and Closing the Skills Gap to specifically demonstrate that self-registration module, so you can kind of see what that looks like. You can see, put in context what Nikki is going to be referring to and speaking to. And then I'm going to switch gears and run over to our reports tab and run a couple of quick reports for you so you can see what that looks like. And working with this H-1B data, we'll look at what the real-time performance outcome measures report looks like, and we'll run a quick WIPS CSV file out of my demo system so you can see what that looks like coming out of Prime. So we hope to and plan to have time for questions and discussion at the end of the session. Please feel free to use the chat feature from GoToTraining to chat in questions as they might come to you throughout the session if you'd like to, and we can refer to those at the end. So without further ado, let me go ahead and formally introduce our guest speaker. Nikki Glazer Stoicoiu is the Director of Data and Analytics at the New Growth Group, as I've mentioned. New Growth Group is located in Cleveland, Ohio, and they are specialists in helping organizations to develop workforce solutions, including strategy work, grant writing, reviewing of services, and of course, project implementation and evaluation and analytics. So they are a great group, has been around for many, many years. The New Growth Group helps projects all around the country. So Nikki, again, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I'll change the slides for you when you tell me you're ready for me to change the slides. So the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited and glad to be here. Perfect. Thanks for skipping the slides. And yes, it's unfortunate that Sylvia can't be here today. Sylvia and I have been working really closely with the Scaling Apprenticeship Grant. But for the purpose of this discussion, New Growth and myself can kind of be viewed as an extension of Lorain County Community College. We are helping with data technical assistance for them for the Scaling Apprenticeship project. So before we discuss how we are using the self-registration module, a little background about how our Scaling Apprenticeship Grant is structured. So Sylvia and I are a part of the Ohio Manufacturing Workforce Partnership, a sector partnership that's led by Lorain and Ohio Manufacturers Association. It is a statewide consortium including education partners such as community colleges and four-year institutions, industry associations, community and economic development folks, and employers, of course. This organization actually, or this consortium, started through a Department of Labor TACT grant actually a few years back called Ohio TechNet, and has continued to collaborate and partner today. So the OMWP received this grant to develop and expand apprenticeship programs in specifically advanced manufacturing through the DOL Scaling Apprenticeship Program. From a data perspective, the consortium has a three-tiered hierarchy, which I think is important to establish in advance before kicking over to the self-registration. So Lorain County Community College oversees the entire data collection process for the consortium, which is separated into 12 different regions. Each region has a designated project manager, and within each region, sub-partners report to the project manager, and all of those folks may assist in the data collection in some capacity. So in order to...
Excuse me, I'm so sorry, but there is this constant tapping going on, and I've been on mute, so I know it can't be me, and I apologize for interrupting, but it's hard to hear you over the tapping. So excuse me again, but I didn't know if I'm the only one hearing it, but I know it's not on my end. So
okay,
thank you. Sorry.
Sure. Let me. Is it better now? Do you still hear it?
No, I'm not hearing it anymore.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure what. Oh, it's okay. All right. So yeah. So basically, to reduce the data collection burden on any one person, our thought process was to have as all of our range of partners interface with the data collection process where it seemed appropriate. So if an employer or an educator or whoever is interfacing with participants, they would have access to Prime and input data. I think we're ready for the next slide. Okay, so why self-registration? Because a large chunk of the data is collected at intake, it was important for us to talk with all of our partners to see what works best for them for the intake process. And initially, we were thinking of using a paper participant intake form that the participants receive, complete, and sign. And partners can still use a paper form if they prefer. And once completed, those forms would be manually inputted into Prime, and that intake form for the folks who already have access to Prime. I'm not sure how many folks on the call do, but that form basically mirrors the create new participant portion of Prime. So, however, it became apparent that that point of intake may not always have the opportunity to actually see someone in person, especially in these COVID reality we are in now. Plus, the 89 different data elements that the Department of Labor is requiring can be quickly overwhelming for all of our partners. And so Prime was able to develop a self-registration module that participants can complete on their own and have direct access to, which we think will help our process greatly for a number of reasons. A few of them being it drastically cuts down on the manual data entry for our partners. It will also remove a big chunk of the paper forms that we no longer will need to, store in a locked container or just less confidential data floating around. And it basically cuts out an entire step of the process. We don't have to have duplicate data entry, on paper from the participant and then manually inputting things into Prime. Next slide. So we are implementing the self-registration module through the Prime has created a unique link that's customized to each of our partners' subregions. And so that link is sent to the participants, and then they click the link, whether that be, whether the region send it through an email or, if they do see the participant in person, they can have them a computer, and a participant goes up to the computer and completes it there. But they were also able to add our custom informed consent and equal opportunity non-discrimination language right into the module. So the participants can sign electronically the informed consent and equal opportunity form right there. No need for any sort of paper documentation of that. Again, just reiterating that it was major value add to not have those extra paper forms floating around. Okay, so now we are shifting gears a little bit on the self-registration and now focusing a little bit more on Prime, data security, and COVID times. So these are just a few recommendations that we created based on Lorraine's protocols and also Department of Labor documents that we tracked down on PII and data security, such as TEGL documentation, TEGL 3911, which focuses on PII. And so we've developed a handful of protocols, which are listed here. And some of them may seem obvious, but it's always good to have them written down. The first one being access to PII is restricted to only partners who need access to those specific participants. So, and Prime is a major value add for that because we can separate out that organizations can only see participants who they actually are interfacing with. We also require any organizations interfacing with Prime to have data sharing agreements or memorandums of understanding signed and established before using Prime. we also requested to our partners that they don't leave Prime open when they're not using it, exit out of it when you're not currently entering or looking at data. And then the last few bullets there were recommendations that we heard from Lorraine, and these aren't set in stone, these are just things that we developed as a protocol for our grant, but since it's COVID and most folks are working on laptops from home, we requested that the laptop be work issued, or there's a VPN on a personal laptop. The laptop's password protected with a complex password, meaning has some combination of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters. And the Prime user ID and password not automatically saved and stored on your computer when you open it up in your web browser. And use private networks, not public networks. And again, those were all protocols that we established internally. So they're not necessarily all recommended from the Department of Labor, but what we thought would be best practices. I think that's it for me, Susan.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Nikki. So we're going to switch gears one more time, maybe for the almost last time. And I will spend a few minutes talking a little bit more in detail about Prime, kind of focusing on those two aspects that I mentioned, the self-registration kind of look and feel out of my demo system, and then running just a couple of quick reports. But first, let me just give you a little bit of a background about myself or AGS. So for more than 20 years, AGS, or American Government Services, or AGS Data Systems is how we're sort of abbreviated these days because it's just easier to say, has been working with a variety of organizations in support of their workforce grants, whether it's WIA, I'm really dating myself, I know, to WIOA, to TACT grants. We supported every single round of TACT a few years ago. We are currently supporting H-1B grants for grantees all over the country, Tech Hire, America's Promise, the SWIFI grants, or the Strengthening Working Families Initiative, several scaling apprenticeship projects, and closing the skills gap projects as well. We've provided generic systems to some of these organizations, and we've provided a series of pre-built compliant templates, if you will, for those of you who are engaged in any of these H-1B grants. As Nikki says, the 89 Pearl fields are not just straight fields. There's lots of computation. There's lots of business logic that in a perfect world, a computer system kind of makes all of that magic happen, so the data entry is clean and easy. Your frontline staff don't have to have business logic memorized. And for those of you who are on this call, who are held responsible for producing the WIPS file and sharing that, to the feds, our system, gives you the ability to click the magic button to produce your quarterly WIPS file that is compliant exactly as how the feds expected, and we keep the systems up to date, as the feds make changes. So just a little bit. I'm not going to go into the whole bit, but that's a little bit of an overview. And we are currently supporting projects. Roughly, I've lost a little bit of count recently, but upwards of probably 120 or 130 different community colleges around the country are utilizing either our existing product G-Stars or AGS Prime, our existing product here, for any number of these H-1B grants. So let me go ahead, if I may, and switch gears to our application itself. And you can see my screen. I've already logged into my demo site for H-1B scaling apprenticeship and closing the skills gap applications. So what I'd like to start with here is just clicking on the participant module, participant management module, where your participants, your apprentices and potential apprentices, data resides. And I have to say, I love working from home and seeing babies and puppies. It's just so, it just warms my heart. It makes all this work so much more fun. Anyway.
I'm really sorry.
No.
We're babysitting the grandkids today. Well, my husband is, and so he was crying, so I apologize.
We love it. No. It's great. It's one of the real benefits. Anyway, so from our participant management view, we see our participants. I'm in a demo site. I have 5 customers, but from this we also have, and this is just going to be a quick demo so you can kind of see what this looks and feels like. So there's a self-registration module that, as Nikki says, this link, this URL with the extension of your specific organization is emailed out to that organization. They can share that link, from their web page. They can email it out to prospective participants, or however you want to really deploy that, or a combination of those things. And so then the organization field gets automatically filled in with that organization's name, so your self-registrant doesn't have to deal with that. It's automatically filled in for them. The data that is presented here, these fields, represent really that initial data collection process for demographic information. Again, for those of you who are familiar with the Pearl for H-1B, you are clearly seeing, fields, field names, field allowable values, and even, help text that is, very specific to the Pearl. So all of that is already baked into your system. The self-registrant would begin to fill this out, from wherever they are. I'm not going to take time to fill all this out. They'd fill this form out. As Nikki says, you can have, other documentation available here for compliance, for agreements, et cetera, as well as document attachments. If you want folks to be attaching resumes or transcripts or some of the other information that you might want to have attached here, as a self-registrant is completing this from wherever they may be, from their phones, right? So that at some point, as we switch gears, and I'm now a staff person whose responsibility is to review my not yet approved participants, all that data that's coming in from across my partners, I have the opportunity, the requirement, I would say, to review this data before it shows up in your general population of data for all of your staff users, to begin to move the person through the process. So this person, Derek Zimmer, is not approved. If I look at my approved participants, we don't see him here. As I review this as part of my job description, I'm going to change his status from not approved to approved, right? Nice simple review of the data. It all looks good. It's all appropriate. Given what we need, I'll save this. And now I can click on approved participants. A very simple workflow that is intended to make it easy for you to gather additional data for participants who aren't right now and may not for some time be coming into, physically come into your centers or community colleges or partners, whatever the case might be. Gives you a chance to begin to gather that data and begin the process working with potential apprentices. That's really all I want to show on the self-registration side, for the moment. If I may, let me go ahead and jump over to the reports tab. So I want to make sure I'm being sensitive to time. When I click on reports, seeing a couple of things over here in my views. So for those of you on the call who are customers who are attending the next meeting in half an hour for our user group meeting, you will see the newly released queries that we have. I won't be demoing queries on this call, but that will be something we'll be seeing in just a little bit. So under our reports, we've got some canned reports that are here. An ever-growing list of reports are part of this world. I'm going to go ahead and just run this real-time performance outcome measures report. All of our customers are expected to enter in their goals that you put into your appendix in your proposal. And you just transcribe all of those goals for every year, for every special population, if you did that, and for every organization, so that you can run your goals report against a funding source and against an individual organization or all organizations, to then be able to see, where you are in your grant process compared to where you think you are, or where you said you were going to be at this particular point in time. So this is not, as you all know, a federally required report, but it is a report that we expect all of our customers who are, project managers and program managers to have a keen interest in being able to see this kind of data. And so we've just gone ahead and produced this report for you. So for those of you who have already created something in Excel, if you will, or some other means of keeping track of this, we do this for you. In this particular instance, we have years 1 through 4 here. We also had a special population that we had put data in for our goals. So we're also automatically generating worksheets as part of your outcome measures report for each one of those special pops that you said you were supposed to be dealing with on an annual basis. So all of that is generated, dynamically for you based on the data that's going in compared to your goals that you enter into the system. Switch gears here and just run this WIPS report so you can just see how this looks coming out of this particular product. So you can see there's no smoke and mirrors. Our customers are already using this for their WIPS upload even from last quarter. I'm just going to go ahead, and I know we're not in 2020 quarter 1, but that's what I have data for in my sample system, so forgive me. We do give you the opportunity for testing purposes to include headers, include an error checking file. I want to go ahead and ignore the error file for the demo for today. And we can go ahead and add some additional fields if we want, but we can select 1 or more organizations, as you may have expectations for certain outcomes based on each organization as part of your consortium. So you can run this report as well. If you're running this for the feds, of course, you would always select all organizations. So go ahead and run this. Snaps open pretty quickly because I don't have a lot of data. I included the headers so that you can see, kind of what this looks like. We actually have, the program IDs and all the 89 fields that you're, required, that you're expecting in your WIPS file that the feds are expecting for you to provide for them. The reports, the performance outcome updates that the feds published last week. We've already updated our templates and our customers' sites to accomplish all of those updates, so they're already ready for this quarter's update. So one of the other nice things that we just kind of keep everything up to date as things continue to change. So with that, I am going to run back over here to my quick slide, the demonstration of processes. So just to recap, we took a quick look at demographics of potential participants in that approval workflow with self-registration. We did a real quick demo of the real-time performance outcome measures report. We used the Scaling Apprenticeship Grant against all organizations. So that was that consolidated report. Then we also ran a CSV file as compliant for the Pearl. And we used the Scaling Apprenticeship Grant, and we selected 2020 Q1. Here's a web link if you want to take a look at anything that we have about on the web for AGS Prime, which is this product, agsprime.com. And with that, I would like to say thank you very much for attending this webinar. Here is the contact information for myself and for Nikki and for Sylvia, who again we miss, but she said it was fine for us to extend her email to you should you want to get in touch with her, as well as Nikki, as well as myself. So thank you again for that. I do have a quick poll, if I may. I'm just really curious how many of you have a plan for our gathering your self-registration data. If you go ahead and fill that out, that would be great. Just leave that up for just another few seconds. Make sure we have time, a little bit of time for discussion. Okay, it looks like we have, most people are still working it out. Some have something up and running, and a few have not yet thought about it, but need to do so. So great. We'll close that poll. Thank you very much. That's very interesting and not terribly surprising. I know we're all still fairly early on in this grant, so that's kind of par for the course. Let me go ahead and open the floor if anyone has any questions that you'd like to ask verbally. I'll take, and while you're asking questions, go ahead and I'll look at the chat features here. Okay, I'm not hearing any audio questions, so let me go to the chat. Yes, we will be emailing you the PowerPoint. And yes, the question was asked, so the recent changes that DOL has made have already been incorporated into the AGS Prime system. Yes, that is correct. All of those changes have already been made, both in the data collection as well as in the WIPS reporting for all the particular computations about when a participant, when an apprentice can be considered an apprentice. There are some real hoops that have to be demonstrated based on whether they're a registered or unregistered apprentice. So we have all of that already baked in. And let's see. Can you customize the self-registration page yourself with admin rights? So yes, Meredith, as we've talked a little bit about that, we'll be able to do some of that for you. We will be starting the training on the admin console as soon as next week. That will go hand in hand with your ability to build your own queries. So that's very exciting. And so we'll want to be, sort of by your side and do some of that building of self-registration for you, so to make sure that it is in compliance with the data collection process for that initial data that has to be filled into the participant profile form. So there may be some limits as to how far out of the box you can color, but we'll work with you on that and then train you how to do some of your own additional work. And those are the only questions that I'm seeing. Oh, one other question, I'm sorry. Question for you, Nikki. Not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot.
Great.
What, in terms of the data privacy and that sort of thing, what were some of the, the bigger, I'm not going to say, what was the biggest challenge, but what were some of the bigger challenges that you faced in terms of business process communications with people who were not necessarily used to working remotely?
What are our biggest challenges with working remotely? I think it's just trying to find the right protocols to use, because we reached out to, because we're all going through this for the first time, and so we wanted to provide as much guidance and the correct guidance as we could to all of our partners. But we reached out to the Department of Labor was still trying to figure out all of this stuff also, and which they did actually recently provide an FAQ for some suggestions on that. But I think it was just trying to find the right answers, and so what we came up with was the closest we could get. But I think there's some documentation now that exists that might help to guide everyone on that. I don't know if that wasn't really an answer.
I guess being a little flexible and creative probably was important too.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And just asking I mean, a lot of times it's asking the Department of Labor or your FPO directly, or asking the question to the legal or IT departments at your institution, whatever that is. That's what I would recommend.
Great. Well, thank you. Very helpful. All right, everybody. I want to keep everybody as close to on time as possible. We're technically 1 minute over. So with that, unless anyone has any other final questions or comments or any funny stories, I will say goodbye and thank you all very, very much. I hope to hear from you soon. If you're interested in anything that we showed today, please let me know and we will get together with you. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the upcoming weekend. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.